Hang on. Good morning. It is 7:30 a.m. and you are live with Preston. This is Done Believing. I am done believing. I'm done simply believing the truth, and I'm ready to start heading towards knowing the truth. All for the purpose of overcoming my own delusions. My own delusions. Every single one of us has got to fight the spiritual battle within for the purpose of overcoming the delusion. We were born into a world. We were born into a fallen world. We were born to fallen parents who are not perfect. And we were taught a lot of things. I don't care how horrible your parents were, how great your parents were. They didn't know everything, and they only taught you what they knew. So if your parents were horrible, they only taught you what they knew. They didn't set out to screw you up. They just had no choice. And if your parents were good or nice, they only taught you what you knew then, or they only taught you what they knew even then. And I tell you what, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, bad parents, good parents, your earthly parents aren't enough. You're going to have to come to grips with the fact that you've been taught a lot of stuff that's just simply not true. And it makes you a delusional person. The country is gone. The country's gone. Sounds like bad news, right? Sounds like just some kind of attention-getting sort of claim. Oh, I want my country back. It's gone. The Democrats are destroying it. The Republicans are destroying it. The pro-lifers, the pro-choicers. It doesn't matter. Whatever side you're on. If you're hanging out with me, you're probably a little bit more conservative. But listen, the country's been gone for a long time. I'm not quite sure when it disappeared, but let's just analyze the current state of America to what it used to be. What it used to be back in the day at its conception. Whether or not it has ever really been this, it was at least conceived, and this was the idea, the thought behind it, what the founding fathers wanted us to at least move towards. And they did their damnedest to put laws in order to get us headed in the right direction. So there's evidence that we used to be headed in the right direction. Listen, we used to have laws. America, the government, used to pass laws that protected the individual and limited the power of the government. All of the premise of the Constitution, of the Bill of Rights, all this it can be summed up in what? These are inalienable rights that are God-given. God gave us these rights. So what does that mean? If the government comes along and says, well, we're going to take some rights for ourselves so that we can govern you people. What is that? That means that the government is standing in between us and God. They're imposing. And if we are the hands and feet of God, his creation, his people, if he wants to get something done on the earth, he uses people to do it. And he uses his people, not just anybody. That means that the governments of the world, because America's not the only one that's guilty of this, government itself. That means these governments are setting themselves up against God. God says, here, I want my people to have these rights that I'm going to give them. And then the government comes along and says, well, we're going to limit those rights. We're going to put, what's the word I'm looking for? Stipulations, limitations. We're going to hold back some of those rights. It is a shame. Here's one. Here's an example. The First Amendment. The point of the First Amendment is to limit the power that the government can come along and tell you what you can and can't say. The idea of the First Amendment is that, hey, you have the right to say whatever you want. And if people like it, you'll get the praise for it. And if people can't stand it, you'll get the scorn for it. You'll get what's coming to you. And the government won't give it to you. The people will. But we trust that you, an individual, can either get the reward, like I just said, or you're going to reap what you sow, basically. You're going to pay the price for what you say, not society. But now they're saying that all of us suffer. All of us suffer because one person ran their mouth. And it's an attack. Words are violence. You'll hear things like that. Also, the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was to limit the power that the government had. It's a God-given right. You can defend yourself if you want. You can choose to take up arms if that's what you want to do. But in the original government of America, the founding fathers, they were basically thinking, along with some other things about fighting tyranny and so on and so forth. But let's get down to the individual. You can live by the sword if you choose to. That's your choice. Even Jesus gave us that. Jesus said, you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. And that is, I am quoting Jesus when I said that. I had to look that up because I wasn't sure if that was just some colloquialism, some idiom, or if it was actually in the Bible. It is in the Bible. If you pick up your tool of violence and you be violent with it, you're going to suffer and you're going to die because of it. And the government used to say, hey, you know what? You can pay that price if that's what you want to do. But not anymore. Not anymore. They want to make laws that give them the power and prevent you from having your God-given rights. They want to become the governing force in your life instead of the other way around. Instead of laws that cut them back, they cut us back. And that's contrary to the will of God. And that's what's wrong with government. So check this out. I want to look at this story here. I'm going to pop this up. Boom. All right. This is from The Guardian. Let me scroll up. I'm trying to use my left hand. Can't do it. This is from The Guardian. Biden signs executive order to curb anti-trans laws and conversion therapy. Anti-trans laws? There's laws against trans people? Should have used the mute button. Joe Biden has signed an executive order aimed at curbing discrimination against transgendered youth. See, we should have the right to discriminate if we want. We should. That's a God-given right. You want to be a jerk and not socialize with those people over there? You want to just play favorites? You want to do all that? You only want to surround yourself with one type of people group? Fine, you can do that. And if your society seems to like that, then go on with it. But if you end up alienating yourself from the society, that's a price you can pay as well. See, all of these God-given rights put the responsibility on the individual. You're either going to reap the reward for doing what you want to do, or you're going to pay a consequence. And the government used to say, look, we're going to make a law to keep us away so that you can either be successful or fail. And if you fail, it's your fault. It's not our fault. But that has changed. Now the government makes laws that say, oh, if you fail, it's society's fault. It's not your fault. It's society's fault. And if you succeed, then we helped you succeed. Biden's executive order. It's an executive order. There it is. Let's just push it through. He's a king. All these executive orders. Which comes during Pride Month. Asks the federal health and education departments to expand access to gender-affirming medical... Oh, wait, I got to back up. They're going to... Let's spend more money on gender-affirming medical care. Gender-affirming medical care? I thought once they saw that there was a pee-pee or a wee-wee that was pretty much affirmed, but I guess I'm an idiot. Federal funding for controversial practices. Oh, they want to dry up. There it is. Drying up federal funding for the controversial practice of conversion therapy. Now, if you're like me, I had to read this 3 times. I guess because I'm slow. Conversion therapy. I was like, oh, well, that actually sounds like a good thing. But then I had to do some research and figure out what conversion therapy is. So they're always playing word games with us. They always want to put a title on this and a word on that to control us. A word like abortion. No such thing as abortion. Baby killing. That's what it is. It's baby killing. That's it. Why don't you just get comfortable with the fact that you're a baby killer? But that's a whole nother subject. Conversion therapy is the practice of helping because I don't know if it really helps, helping a gay person or a transgender person get back to what we would say is normal, which is not gay or not trans. And they're saying that that is horrible. That is hateful to do that to a person. So you got to be careful with the way that they word this. Conversion therapy. I thought, oh, that's helping a person. I was just confused. I didn't even know what that meant. Conversion therapy. I thought that meant we're going to help somebody convert from heterosexual to homosexual, or we're going to help somebody convert from their birth gender to whatever gender they think they are. So I thought, oh, maybe this is kind of good. Nope, it's actually the opposite. Wednesday's order asked federal agencies to ensure that federally funded programs do not offer conversion therapy, which tries to force, and it was actually in here. I didn't have to go look it up. I should have just kept reading. Which tries to force LGBTQ youth, whatever that is, to change their sexual orientation, and the Federal Trade Commission. Here's where it gets fun. The Federal Trade Commission to consider policies practices that seek to change a patient's sexual orientation or gender identity as deceptive businesses. So they're going to come after not only the medical industry, but also the private sector. If you're just trying to make money, your business is selling baskets. Now all of a sudden you got to incorporate all this other insanity into your day-to-day business. But look, it's a mess. We got to be governed by God's law, which is written on our hearts. We got to be governed by the laws within. And this is what happens to a society that is not capable of taking personal ownership. Like I said before, the federal government back in the early days passed laws that held them back so that you could be an individual and govern yourself. Then people came along and they're like, they couldn't take personal responsibility. They start blaming everything on every other person. And what happens? The government steps outside its boundary, and now it starts saying, well, we got to protect people. So we're going to make laws to protect people. So now it's our job to govern the people. It's not your job to govern the people. It's your job to keep yourself back. Govern yourself, government. And the government is the people. Here in America, government of the people, for the people, by the people. What does that mean? We're the government. So what does that tell you about the state of our society and our government? It's messed up. The people themselves will not self-govern. They won't take responsibility. They refuse to. And here's my point. If you don't take personal responsibility, you're giving that responsibility to somebody else, which means you're giving power of your life to another person or organization or institute. It's over for you. You just signed your life away if that's what you're doing. It's done. So what's the remedy? How do we get our country back? More and more individuals. And this is what gives me hope, because I have just a small group of friends, very small. I know a lot of people, and not all the people I know practice this, but there's a very small group, small percentage, that they're waking up and they're realizing, wait, the answer is me. I'm the answer. I got to get my life back under control. I got to stop walking around saying I'm a Christian. I actually got to start being a Christian. You got to start governing yourself. And what gives a person the power to govern themselves? The laws of God written on your heart. The laws of God, the word of God, it's written on your heart. That comes from within. The conviction to want to do and find out what your Creator wants you to be, it comes from within you. It comes from a relationship you have with God. It doesn't come from joining the right church group joining the right movement, that's crap. It doesn't work. I've tried it. I can tell you now, I've tried it. Doesn't work. This is what you got to do. You got to learn how to be alone with God. What does your prayer life look like? And I have talked to many people throughout my years, throughout my tenure as a missionary, as a pastor, back in the day when that's what I was doing, and even now as a friend and a counsel, not a counselor, just a counsel. People would come to me. This is the problem I'm having. And I whittled it down, and it's so boring and simple, and I've been accused for just making it a formula, but it pretty much is a formula. It's so simple. Hell, even planting a seed in the ground and reaping a harvest is a formula. You till the earth, you put the seed, you do this, you water it, you fertilize it, you pull some weeds, boom, when the time is right, you don't make it grow. You just go through the process, and it just does, it just grows on its own. And here's the process, spiritually speaking. Go be alone. Go be alone. What does your prayer life look like? How can you be governed from within, by God within you, the kingdom of heaven within you, the Holy Spirit living within you, giving you life? How can you be governed from within if you won't even take the time to go and sit and get to know yourself? Observe your thoughts. Observe what's going on in your own life. You're so concerned about everything else. The only reason I have the news story, the only reason I'm showing news stories on here is not to get caught up with what the world's doing. It's just to use it as an example, to ask the question, do you live from the laws within, the law of God written on your heart, or do you live from laws without? Are you lawless? Because if you're lawless, then the society is going to have to give you some laws. Go within, get alone with the Father, learn how to hear the voice of God telling you what to do every day. Life becomes so simple. You're not worried about any of this stuff anymore. They can pass what they want to in the land, but I'm going to be governed from within. And if that governance from within me comes in conflict with the laws without, then I will do what the founding fathers put out there for us to do. And that is, I'll pay the consequence. I will pay the consequence in this life. And as a Christian, I've already made the choice. And I hope you have too as a Christian. Are you going to hang on to this life, or are you going to lose this life so that you can have eternal life? Because if you're hanging on to this one and you're fighting, then you're going to die. You live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. But we lose this life so that we can be set free and have true life. It comes from within. Are you going to be governed from without? Are you going to fight about that? The laws, the government going to pass a law you don't like? Transgender, this and that and the other, LGBTQ. You're going to go get a gun and take law and live by the sword? You're going to die by the sword. We got to live from the laws within. And if those laws come in conflict, we got to make a choice. We got a choice to make. Are we willing to pay the consequence to live from within? Think about that. Go into your prayer time. What's your prayer life look like? Get it together. Go and ask yourself that in the presence of God. Do I have what it takes to pay the ultimate consequence because I'd rather please God? We'll see you later. 7:30 tomorrow. Tomorrow, what is today? Thursday? 7:30 tomorrow, Friday. Have a good one.